Hatsune Miku and Kasane-Teto are everywhere, from Miku's appearance in Fortnite and Sonic Races to Teto's viral brain rot and expertly tuned meme songs, but leading a new wave of mainstream Vocaloid popularity. It's no surprise that we've seen such a surge in Miku-Teto duets, as producers capitalise on their individual fame to create a power duo unlike anything the Vocaloid fandom has seen in years. But if you watch enough of these duets, you'll start to feel it. You'll notice that there's something missing. There is a third presence lurking in the shadow of Miku and Teto's joint success, always slightly out of frame. In all their duets, every hit they've had, there's someone else watching them. The ancient text was written all the way back in 2008, and led to the formation of a trio that would never fully break under the weight of time. It may have fractured, faded, been forgotten by the casual listener, but now, over 15 years later, it has returned. She has returned. Hatsune Miku, Kasane-Teto, and the forgotten third, Akita Neru, the yellow one that wasn't in Mesmerizer. Akita Neru is a special kind of vocal synth because she's not really a vocal synth at all, at least not in the sense of them being software. She's a Fanloid, short for fan-made Vocaloid, which are characters created entirely by the fandom, not by official companies. That means there are no actually existing voice banks for Fanloids, so they lie outside the boundaries of commercial viability and expensive software, backed only by their own fans. You can't buy Akita Neru's voice in the same way you can buy Hatsune Miku or Kasane-Teto's. Despite that, she still manages to sing. Fanloid's voices are created by uniquely tuning official voice banks. For example, Casino Meiko uses Meiko's voice bank, but she's specifically tuned to sound younger than Meiko's typically more mature tone. Neru's voice is recognised within the fandom as a high-pitched Miku, or, slightly more rarely, a low-pitched Kagami Rin, both tuned in a way that conveys Neru's own tone and personality. You end up with a sound that is understood to be Neru and is represented using her image, but is technically a different Vocaloid singing. This might sound a bit confusing, and to be honest it kind of is. The world of Fanloids is very broad and strange and hard to define. Even some of the stuff I've just said probably won't apply to every single Fanloid. Plus, there are a lot of different categories. Some are completely original characters that stand independent from official vocal synths and tend not to sing, existing primarily for visual purposes. Another popular type of Fanloid are the gender bends, where people play around with a voice bank to make them sound like the opposite gender. One of my favourite things in the entirety of Vocaloid is the fact that Kagami Rin and Len, a pair of matching boy and girl voice banks who both have the same voice provider, so they're basically already gender-bent versions of each other, also have gender-bent versions of themselves called Rinto and Lenka. There's also a ton of weird mascot, stroke characters and meme creations like Kasane-Peto. It can be pretty overwhelming when you're new to the fandom. Within this confusing but fascinating web is a subcategory known as derivatives, fan-made characters that are based on official Vocaloids but altered in some way. This is where we find Akita Neru. I wonder which official vocal sim she could possibly be based off of. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you look at her design. She's basically a yellow-themed Hatsune Miku with one twin tail cut off. In that sense, she's not particularly special. Miku has by far the most derivatives of any vocal synth. Some of them are official, like Snow Miku, some are Fanloids, like Zatsune Miku, and some are purely aesthetic. But not all of these different Mikus are the Miku. You know, like this one, the proper Miku. But they also sort of are Miku at the same time, like they embody the idea of Miku, the concept. Like, there's a whole spectrum of how close to Miku a derivative is. But what makes Neru an especially compelling figure amongst all these different versions of official Vocaloids is that she's completely ascended above her origins of being a derivative. She has a recognisable personality, distinct aesthetic, and she doesn't always have to rely on Miku's voice to be heard. That is pretty much unheard of for a Fanloid, to reach a point where you're no longer just a variation of a Vocaloid's theme, but a character who stands on equal footing with other official creations. Neru's origins are kind of murky. There's some slight differences in each retelling of her conception, and you get the impression no one's fully certain of the precise details. It's one of those fandom tales that kind of like half remembered, half mythologized, and reliant on like decades old forum threads. I'd be interested if anyone's heard anything different to the version I'm about to relay, or even if anyone was active in the Vocaloid fandom during this time. I do kind of doubt that that will be many people though, because Neru dates all the way back to some of the earliest days of Vocaloid, back in October of 2007. Hatsune Miku had been released only a couple of months earlier on the 31st of August to completely unprecedented levels of success. Krypton Future Media had expected her to be a niche software for professional producers. Instead, Vocaloid exploded in popularity. Amateur producers took an instant liking to her, and she quickly took over forum threads and Nico Nico Douga, Japan's version of YouTube at the time, flooding the site with songs, music videos, and memes. Within 2 weeks of her release, Miku was the top-selling software on Amazon Japan. Plus, in her first year, she'd sell an average of 300 units a week, a staggering number for a singing software. But she'd already moved beyond her origins as a piece of software. She was the figurehead of a rapidly expanding community throbbing with creativity. However, it seemed that certain powerful figures were resistant to her meteoric rise. The first incident occurred on the 14th of October of 2007, when the TBS News Network, a Japanese TV station, was doing a special feature on Miku. In it, they stereotyped all Miku users as unemployed, anime freaks without stable work experience, outraging fans. Then, just 3 days later, all information related to Miku vanished from Google and Yahoo searches. 2 more days, and a Hatsune Miku entry in a Japanese Wikipedia page was deleted. In the eyes of Vocaloid fans, this wasn't just coincidence, it was censorship. And for users on Japanese Textboard 2 channel, it seemed that there was an anti-Miku smear campaign underway, trying to get rid of Miku and indie musicians from the traditional music scene. This was a massive topic of discussion on the site, with fans worried that their new obsession was going to be destroyed by the mainstream media. In the midst of all this panic, there was something weird happening in certain parts of the forum. There was an influx of comments, always spaced a few seconds apart, that denied the rumour, designed to derail the conversation and encourage people to just log off and give up. All of these messages were eerily similar, containing phrases like, "Got bored, go into bed," "I'm tired," or "It's over, I'm going to sleep." Basically telling the users to quit posting and go to sleep, the 2007 equivalent of touching grass. Obviously, most users did not respond well to the troll comments, and the accounts writing these posts were labelled as yet another way for the Japanese music industry to try to suppress Miku. Soon, people began to investigate the origin of these accounts. It seemed that a lot of these comments were being made by cell phones, and some users came to believe that it was the advertising company Dentsuko that was behind the suppression. A post was created with the aim of finding the true origin of her messages, containing a URL which recorded and displayed IP addresses of users who clicked it. One of the domains that was tricked was identified to belong to an online marketing company which moderated the reputations of the companies they represented on forums like 2channel. After this discovery, with most users finally convinced of the legitimacy of a Miku hate movement, the troll posts ended and the outrage died down. I should note that it's still unclear exactly who was behind these troll accounts, or if there really was any kind of mass campaign against Miku, as the message boards were full of unsubstantiated rumours and theories. Please don't take any of this as exact fact. Plus, Google and Yahoo stated that Miku's disappearance from searches was simply a technical issue that also affected some other search terms, and the Wikipedia page was briefly removed due to copyright issues. Still, the idea of a Miku-hating agency persisted for a while, which isn't much of a surprise considering how much of an underdog Vocaloid was in the industry. And it was in the middle of all this controversy that Akita Neru was formed, starting life not as a new voice but as a meme on 2channel, a satirical symbol of the weird troll accounts. Despite her being an entirely fan-made creation, up until this point, I've neglected to mention how fans came up with her name. In a phonetic reading, Akita Neru roughly sounds like, "I'm tired, going to sleep." That's right. The signs were there all along. She's never seen without her phone, she's clearly trying to mimic Miku, she has a tattoo saying Den 2, Dentsuko, on her shoulder. It all points to the obvious. Akita Neru was a troll in the Miku smear campaign, aiding shadowy advertising companies from her cell phone. Or, at least, that's what she was designed to represent. She was a personification of the Vocaloid hater, performing string pulling with a cell phone. The initial idea came from a user commenting that he wouldn't be mad if the troll was a cute girl, spiraling from there. Her personality was surprisingly concrete for a vocal synth, especially one created by fans. She was pretty much always characterized as a tsundere, someone with an inherent dislike for Vocaloid fans, but sometimes secretly holding some affection for them. So she was often hostile and aggressive and kind of annoying, but could also be portrayed in a friendlier manner. Some of the other ways she was characterized as a Miku wannabe, which is one of my personal headcanons, or as a joke towards people who didn't have enough patience to learn how to use the Vocaloid software properly. And of course, she was also a forum troll, earning 700 yen an hour for her part-time agency job. She was the first chronically online vocal synth. Neru's original design came from the creator Smith-Hyoka and was deliberately similar to Hatsune Miku's, leaning into the idea of her being a sort of Miku imitator, or a cheap knockoff. An interesting little detail is that the blue ribbon that holds her ponytail doesn't actually need to touch her head to keep it in place, making for a difficult cosplay if you're aiming for 100% authenticity. But the real standout in her design, aside from her perpetually irritated expression, is her cell phone. She's almost never seen without it. Plus, aside from hair and colour, the only other notable difference from Miku is that she has an additional phone sometimes strapped to her leg. I guess, just in case she loses the first one. Her trolling must continue. Despite being born as a meme and fandom in-joke, Neru's popularity soared. She was embraced by the Vocaloid community, to the point where in April of 2008, Smith-Hyoka announced that he'd struck a licensing deal with Krypton Future Media. This officially characterized Neru as a derivative character of Hatsune Miku, giving her a somewhat legitimate place in the broader Vocaloid ecosystem. This meant that Neru could be used under the Pure Pro character license, which allowed fans to create derivative works as long as they followed specific guidelines. It also led to her making official appearances in the Vocaloid rhythm game series Project Eva. She even got some official merchandise, giving us a figure and a plush. Those figures can go for a fairly high amount these days, probably because it's nigh impossible to get Krypton to make merchandise for any other Vocaloid but Miku, never mind a fan-made derivative. No wonder Neru finds her so annoying. I'll be ranting about her on my phone too. And, fittingly, it is Neru's endless phone usage that takes centre stage in what is arguably her most iconic appearance. It's finally time to talk about Triple Baka. Released in June of 2008, Triple Baka by Mesmerizer is one of the most iconic and beloved songs in the Vocaloid fandom, well known for being many fans' first real introduction to the subgenre. I mean, it's literally the first song in my Vocaloid playlist. Featuring Hatsune Miku, Teto, and of course Akita Neru, it's a cute, energetic song that perfectly captures that early internet feeling, embodying the playful charm that made early Vocaloid music so endearing. The music video is just really adorable and funny, with highlights including Neru hitting Miku on the head with a lead, Teto's little dance break, and Neru's obvious disinterest in their colouring competition. The three characters also have very distinct sounds. Miku, as expected, takes the lead, singing the lyrics while Teto provides accompanying background noises. Like, I'm not exactly sure what she's doing here. But Mesmerizer made the choice to have Neru communicate solely through phone noises, using that as her voice within the song rather than altering Miku or Rin's voice bank. This wasn't the standard choice for Neru by any means, and the vast majority of songs using her continued to alter her pre-existing voice bank. Still, the concept of her speaking using a phone was always at the forefront of her character thanks to Triple Baka's iconic status. What's especially amazing about the song is it managed to make me feel nostalgic for an era of the internet and Vocaloid that I wasn't even around for. There's something really comforting about it, calling back to a time where everything was fan-made and fun and nothing had to be professional and perfect. And I think that's why it's managed to stick around for so long. It's like a time capsule of the early Vocaloid spirit. Triple Baka also managed to solidify those three vocal synths as a unit. It makes some sense after all. You have Miku, the most popular Vocaloid, Teto, the most popular non-Vocaloid synth, and Neru, the most popular Fanloid. Together, they represent the three tiers of vocal synth fame, working in harmony to create one of the cutest Vocaloid songs ever. Neru continued to be popular in the early days of the fandom, frequently appearing in MMD videos, which are fan-made animations using 3D models, alongside other Fanloids and having many, many covers to her name. However, original songs featuring Neru were noticeably less common. This was likely due to the trade-off involved. Using Neru meant foregoing the visibility and built-in popularity that came just from using Hatsune Miku as Hatsune Miku. Producers could easily reach a wider audience by sticking with Miku's voice and image rather than tuning her to fit a less iconic fan character. As a result, Neru never amassed the volume of original songs that official vocal synths did, and her appearances often focused more on conveying her personality than focusing on her sound. That's not to say that Neru didn't have some hits. Her most iconic solo song is arguably Gotcha Gotcha Urusei, produced by Ottawa P and typically translated as Stop Nagging Me in English. And it's easy to see why this song became so strongly associated with her. Beyond its like really catchy hook and punchy instrumental, it perfectly encapsulates the abrasive side of Neru's personality. The song is structured such that Neru receives a barrage of questions, ranging from simple parental scolding like, "Did you brush your teeth?" or "Have you finished your homework?" to more existential jabs like, "When will you stop escaping? You should face reality, right?" Her constant, defiant response is always the same, "Gotcha Gotcha Urusei," or "Shut up, stop nagging me." It's a brilliantly simple concept that taps into a feeling I'm sure everyone has felt at some point, the irritation of being constantly criticised, especially when you're already overwhelmed. Sharp-sounding repetitive chorus reinforces Neru's character as someone who's frustrated and checked out, and the quick pacing and kind of spoken delivery gives her a really expressive voice. For me, and likely many other fans, this is what Neru sounds like. Gotcha Gotcha Urusei just feels like the epitome of a Neru song. It's also a very old track by Vocaloid standards, first uploaded in October 2010, it will be turning 15 later this year. It captures a specific era in Vocaloid history, when Fanloids was still a common presence in music videos, MMDs, and covers. Neru was only really a popular voice in the earliest phase of Vocaloid, from roughly 2007 to 2012. After that, her visibility declined pretty sharply. She never vanished completely, few things in Vocaloid truly do, but she became more of a nostalgic symbol, a reminder of Vocaloid's roots. This change didn't just affect Neru, it was part of a wider shift in the Vocaloid community as a whole. Vocaloid had managed to gain legitimacy both as a serious music tool and as a commercially viable product, entering a more polished phase where a lot of the rough edges of the early era were smoothed out. Producers weren't just unknown randoms making music from their bedrooms, but popular figures, able to make entire careers just out of Vocaloid production or break into the mainstream using their own voice. For example, Baka was mainly active during this period before moving on to focus on his band Hitori, whose members were able to find him through his Vocaloid music. As the focus shifted to higher production value and a stronger sense of producer identity, Fanloids started to lose their relevance. The fandom was changing from being interested in the vocal synths as characters to looking more at the producers and their music. Plus, Fanloids were also a necessity of a time where there just weren't that many voice banks, a concept that is hard to conceive of now when you look at the thousands of available ones. With the explosion of new Vocaloids and new tiles, each with unique voices, dynamics, and visuals, Venisa characters like Neru simply faded away. Her biggest struggle was always the fact that she didn't have an official voice bank. It meant that she was never relevant because of her sound. Her voice is ultimately just Hatsune Miku or Kagami no Rin, but because of her staying power as an early meme. Her identity wasn't tied to music, but to her aesthetic and personality. and like most memes, it's difficult to stick around for more than a few years. Humour changes, fandoms age, and nostalgia dims. Neru was fairly irrelevant for the majority of the 2010s, remembered fondly but absent from modern Vocaloid culture. But in 2024, all was not lost. Hatsune Miku was always at the forefront of Vocaloid, the face of the entire movement, her popularity rising and falling more or less in sync with the entire vocal synth scene. Miku-Teto had faded somewhat in popularity compared to her release of Utao in 2008, which is a different vocal synth software to Vocaloid, with Utao as a whole feeling slightly outdated. But the release of her Synth V voice bank in 2023 catapulted her into a new wave of popularity. She's probably the biggest she's ever been, boosted by her easily tunable, human-like voice bank. It was only a matter of time before someone combined the two biggest figures in the scene. Mesmerizer hit the Vocaloid community in a way that I have never seen before. Released at the end of April 2024, the Miku-Teto duet was an unprecedented success, the kind of virality you only see once every few years, or even every few decades. It was only in 2022 that we had a Vocaloid song hit 100 million views on YouTube for the first time. Mesmerizer did that in less than 7 months, the fastest ever, and it shows no signs of slowing down. It passed 150 million as I was writing the script. The song itself is a catchy, hypnotic melody that blends the two voices together with some interesting tuning. The real star, however, is its music video. Illustrated by the infamous artist Cast Station, their bright colours, fast dance moves, and constant stimulation are impossible to look away from. Plus, there are tons of hidden secrets hinting at something dark happening off camera. The hypnotism of Miku and Teto. There's Morse code, sign language, and acrostics, and people went back to the song again and again, trawling through it frame by frame, hoping to be the next to discover a hidden secret. It was also a goldmine for artists. The designs were simple and fun, making it easy to reproduce and create your own animations, and the simple concept of them being hypnotized led to a flood of fan art and fan edits. The Miku-Teto renaissance was truly underway, with Mesmerizer inspiring a new wave of duets, memes, and music videos. But where was Neru? Whilst Miku and Teto were achieving viral fame as the faces of the Vocaloid resurgence, Neru was nowhere to be seen. And the sad thing is, the absence wasn't really anything of note. She'd been behind Teto and Miku for years. But her return would come, not for an official release, not through a song or a video, but through something far more fitting for a character addicted to trolling, a tweet. It goes as follows, a simple gif of triple Baka, Hatsune Miku as the first reply, Kasane Tata is the second reply, and the third reply, with excellent comedic timing, is, and the yellow one that doesn't appear in Mesmerizer, so I don't remember her. Pretty emblematic of how irrelevant Neru had become in the fandom, forgotten, overshadowed, only seen in a song from 2008. But, in an ironic twist of fate, this tweet will be the thing to resurrect Neru, dragging her popularity up alongside Miku and Teto. It went very, very viral, and there was an immediate influx of commenters informing onlookers exactly who the yellow vocal synth was. Also, people, especially those in the Western fandom, just really loved the joke and instantly took to calling Neru the yellow one that doesn't appear in Mesmerizer. One thing about the Vocaloid fandom, for better or worse, is that they do not let go of their jokes. I have seen Neru called the yellow one at least a couple of hundred times over the last year, and you know what, I still find it a little bit funny. The meme was everywhere, and soon people began to wonder, what if Neru was always a part of Mesmerizer, hidden in plain sight? Initially, fan artists simply added her alongside Miku and Teto, experimenting with different Neru outfits that would match the bright, carnival-esque fashion already on display. Her yellow colour palette fits in well, almost as if she has been there all along, and social media was soon flooded with edits of the trio. However, the fan creativity didn't stop there. The yellow one that wasn't in Mesmerizer began to evolve into something slightly more sinister. At the centre of Mesmerizer's music video, there's this yellow spiky shape, which flutters and swirls with hypnotic spirals. It seems to represent a mysterious force hypnotizing Miku and Teto. A yellow shape? It doesn't take much to make believe that it must be Neru behind the hypnotism. It all makes sense. That's why she doesn't feature in the music video, not because she was a forgotten relic of Vocaloid past with no true voice bank, but because she was behind the camera, the malicious entity behind it all. It works especially well when you consider the way Neru has traditionally been characterized. She's a Vocaloid hater at heart, or at least she is in her early iterations. It makes a twisted kind of sense. This trend absolutely exploded, to the point where a lot of people mistakenly believe Neru was actually a part of the original video and not just a fan interpretation. I remember a hoax going around where someone had doctored frames from the original to sneak Neru into the background. It was pretty believable. She also merged slightly with the lost media version of Mesmerizer. Misumari Music too, a producer known for their stylistic remixes, had posted a version of Mesmerizer where each portion incorporated a different Vocaloid song, which was then slowed down and used for a pretend lost media version of Mesmerizer. A fake music video lost to time. It was probably my favourite trend to come out of the Mesmerizer craze. I love how crunchy and nostalgic the audio feels, as well as the different fan art that people create to go alongside it. Soon, Neru was added, not just lurking in the background, but starring, the mastermind behind it all finally centre stage. And in a way, it felt like we'd finally come full circle. The Triple Baka squad reunited in a song absolutely dripping with early 2000s nostalgia and fan creativity. This massively pushed Neru into the mainstream, reaching casual fans and even non-Vocaloid listeners, something she never really managed to do even during her initial run. It's an interesting dynamic. Miku and Teto are very much still the stars, but there's also sometimes Neru there too. She's also here, getting to join in their fame. Hooray!
Dude, roll the windows up. Dude, roll the windows
Why?
up! Hurry! It's Neru! She's broke, she's homeless, she's gonna ask for a voice.
Plus, it's getting rarer to see a comment section on a Miku-Teto video about someone asking where Neru is. She gets to come along for the ride, the third thing people think of. Her recent resurgence, however, has led to different groups of fans having very different perceptions of her. I've talked about Teto's characterization and fandom perception changing slightly with her fancy new sympathy voice bank, losing the wanting to be a real Vocaloid aspect of her character. However, there felt like a natural evolution from Untitled Chapter to Sympathy-Teto. With Neru, however, that evolution hasn't been so linear. It feels like there are two fairly distinct versions of her online, a split personality of sorts born from fandom amnesia. On the one hand, we have the classic Neru we've already discussed, the Vocaloid troll, the tsundere, the Miku copycat. She uses a high-pitched Miki or a low-pitched Rin to speak. She can be kind of annoying. Then we have this other, newer version of Neru which we've been seeing more and more frequently, shaped almost entirely by recent memes. She's more of an underdog, the third forgotten one after Miku and Teto. She isn't especially mean or aggressive. If anything, you feel a little bit sad that she's been left out. And importantly, this version of Neru almost always speaks through phone noises like in Triple Baka. Some people see these noises as her voice, others see her as a character that doesn't speak but uses her phone to communicate. There's also a good deal of overlap between these two extreme versions of Neru. I've seen plenty of videos where she uses her phone to communicate, and is also a bit of a hater. They're kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum rather than a strict divide, but I think there is still a noticeable contrast between the two. I think this shift mainly comes from how Neru re-entered the scene. She broke into online meme culture through the yellow one, and it means that for many new fans, the only things they've seen her in are Triple Baka and fan versions of Mesmerizer via TikTok or YouTube Shorts. And that means they're missing out so much context and fandom history and often just basic knowledge of what a fanloid is. Like, I'm trying to use TikTok a lot less these days, but it is frustrating to see comments with hundreds and sometimes thousands of likes asserting that Neru doesn't speak, that she only uses her phone to communicate. It's especially annoying because not only is it spreading misinformation about an already confusing part of Vocaloid, by denying the fact that she does have a voice, you ignore the presence of thousands of songs and covers, erasing those from Vocaloid history. To say she just doesn't talk ignores the years of music, fan art, and creativity that went into building her as a character in the first place. It's a shame that it's only the image of Neru that seems to have made a resurgence, and not so much music that uses her voice. The thing is, I really love the concept of a non-verbal vocal synth who communicates using their phone. That's a great basis for fan creation and songs, but that isn't really who Neru is, or at least it's only one aspect of her identity, and I think she needs to start being recognized as more than just a meme, or the third wheel to Miku and Teto. Her rise feels like a double-edged sword. It's incredible to see her reach new audiences and become part of the broader internet community, no longer confined to a niche world of fanloids. But I also feel her newfound popularity risks flattening her into only a meme, the yellow one who makes phone beeping noises. Neru has always been more than just that. She's the purest form of fan creation, born out of online humour, frustration, and raw creativity. To see her reduced to a background joke, stripped of her history and the online culture that shaped her, feels bittersweet. She's not just a meme or a side character, she's a weird, messy, multifaceted part of Vocaloid history. But still, whether she's the third wheel in Miku-Teto edits or a volatile internet troll who hates Vocaloids, but also maybe doesn't, Neru has managed to carve out a space for herself nearly 18 years after she was first conceived. And somehow, against all odds, she's relevant again. I think it speaks to the nature of fanloids as a whole, unpolished, inconsistent, and defined entirely by the people who care enough to keep them alive. Even if she's changed, there's no denying that it's due to newer fans' creativities that she's been resurrected. At the end of the day, she's a symbol of whatever the fandom wants her to be, and even if that changes, I feel I can't complain too much. Although I prefer the old Neru characterization, I never want to stop the new wave of art, edits, memes, and covers. Maybe she doesn't need to be consistent, she just needs to be Neru. Maybe she'll fade away again, maybe she'll stick around for a bit longer this time, but for now, the yellow one is here, beeping away, stubbornly refusing to be forgotten. And honestly, for a fanloid born from forum trolling, that feels like a miracle. Thank you so much for watching the Neru video, and check out my Teto and Miku videos if you haven't already. Mesmerizer Neru also says that you should like, and comment, and subscribe. But especially comment, those are my favourite parts of making these videos. I like seeing what people had to say about Vocaloid, their own opinions on this stuff, whether you disagree with anything I've said, and if there's any parts of Vocaloid history that you've experienced that I haven't experienced myself. Thanks for watching, and goodbye!